Hello everybody and welcome to Top 5 Friday, the show where we take a theme and then I let you know what I think are the top 5 games that fit the theme. In this episode we're going to be taking a look at what I think are the top 5 N64 first person shooters. Number 5 was a really tough choice between Doom 64 and the game that I eventually chose. Doom 64 is a really great first person shooter and it's definitely underrated on the N64, but I decided in 5th place I'd go for Duke Nukem 64. Now this is one game which pretty much everybody's played, and you probably played it on the PC before you played this port over on the N64. And whilst it's not the best graphically, it has got a lot of character to the game. There's lots of secret areas to find, and I think that the controls, the dialogue, the story, it's all quite a fun game. It's not to be taken too seriously, but it actually has got quite a bit of challenge in it as well. That's why it didn't really finish too high on my list, because it was a port of a PC game, and by that point even the PC game was already out of date, but it is still nevertheless a fun game to play. In at 4th place, we're going to go with Perfect Dark. Now probably a lot of you are thinking, why is this not higher up on the list? And to be honest, it is a really good game, and a lot of people obviously were expecting GoldenEye 2, then it wasn't, sort of quite as good as that, and it didn't really reach the heights that GoldenEye reached, despite the fact graphically, technically, it is a much stronger game. The reason why this wasn't higher up on the list for me was because even though it is a great game, there was just something that didn't connect as much as GoldenEye, and I don't think anybody who got Perfect Dark thought it reached the highs that GoldenEye reached. And also, you must have been feeling a little bit disappointed when you eventually got to play the game, because it didn't quite have that same magical feel as it. Nevertheless though, the graphics are brilliant, the multiplayer is still really fun, and the game engine is absolutely fantastic. It's probably the best first person engine on the N64. In 3rd place on our list, I'm going to go for Turok 3. Now of the 4 Turok games on the N64, this one's definitely my favourite. The first one I'm not too keen on, the second one I thought was far too difficult. Rage Wars I thought was fun, but compared to the multiplayer that you could already get on GoldenEye, as well as having a single player campaign on there, it wasn't quite as good. So I did decide to go for Turok 3. This is becoming quite expensive to get hold of, especially complete in box. But in terms of the actual game itself, I'd say it's probably got some of the best graphics from any game on any genre on the N64. It does make use of the expansion pack, which sort of does help to improve that. Now there are people that complain about the frame rate in the game because it can drop quite slow sometimes. But the actual game itself is really fun to play. It's completely different than a lot of the other Turok games in terms of its setting. The storyline is kind of sort of fitting together, but it is a really great game, and not too many people actually realise that it exists, which is quite surprising because it did come out quite late in the N64's life. So if you haven't already played it, it's definitely worth going and checking out. Number 2 on my list was Quake 2. This is an absolutely brilliant first-person shooter, and if you haven't played it, you definitely need to go out and play this. Now a lot of people who are maybe watching this think, oh, I've already played Quake 2 on PC when it came out the first time around. This version of Quake 2 was completely built from the ground up, the same way that Doom 64 was built specifically for the console. Quake 2 is an awesome game, the graphics are really good on it, it's got a huge campaign and there's different branching paths depending on how many secrets you find as you're playing the game. I found it to be challenging, but not to the point where it was sort of boring and stressing. It felt like a fair challenge, whereas a lot of first person shooters just fire loads of different enemies at you in an attempt to kill you. There's always a good balance between it being just about difficult enough but being enjoyable to play. I like the graphics in there. The storyline, as you'd expect for a Quake game, is pretty much non-existent, but I think that if you're looking for a really great first-person shooter, then this is definitely one that you need to check out. Okay, so that brings us to the number 1 spot, and you can probably already, all of you, guess exactly what this is. I'm going to go with GoldenEye. GoldenEye is absolutely brilliant. There's not really a whole lot you can say about it, because it's one of those games that pretty much everybody has already played. The graphics on this, especially when you consider when it came out, is one of the earlier N64 titles, even to this day really push the hardware quite far. The multiplayer mode is what everybody remembers it for. I've talked about this before, everyone's got memories of sitting around playing GoldenEye in 4-player deathmatch mode. Not only this, there's absolutely tons of secrets to unlock, the story follows the film perfectly, the balance of the gameplay is brilliant, it's just an all-round enjoyable game. There's nothing really that I could fault with GoldenEye. It's just an absolutely perfect game. And when you consider many first-person shooters in the modern era, they respawn you at the same point, you can complete the whole game and do everything within a couple of hours. and they focus particularly on the multiplayer. A lot of that multiplayer aspect is really down to GoldenEye, because it was the first console game to really nail the multiplayer 4-player deathmatch. So, you know, all these modern games like Call of Duty, Halo, they owe a lot to GoldenEye. So what are your thoughts on the top 5 N64 first-person shooters? Are there any games that you really like and you think should have been in my top 5? Then let me know in the comments down below, or why not leave a video response? It's always like to watch your videos and see exactly what you think. Until next time, if you've got any suggestions for next week's Top 5 Friday, leave a comment below, and thanks for watching.